Welcome, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, to this new appointment. Tonight we have from Hamburg, Germany, our old friend Lars Richter, who is giving a talk about a long history, the history of the VDVA. That's the famous German Association of Transit Enthusiasts. The talk will be done in English, but if you want to use the chat, you can do it anytime during the presentation, and at the end there will be space for any questions and answers. I remind you that the next appointment is scheduled for Tuesday, February 24th, and the subject is the electric rail in Montreal, Canada. Thank you. Now, before giving the floor to Lars, I have to repeat everything in Italian. Buonasera signore e signori, e questa sera abbiamo il piacere di avere il nostro amico e socio Lars Richter da Amburgo, che è il presidente di VDVA, che è l'associazione degli amatori, diciamo, dei trasporti tedeschi, di cui siamo soci, tra l'altro ATTS anche, e farà tutta la storia dei grandi viaggi che loro organizzano ogni anno, ne fanno uno in qualche parte d'Europa nel corso degli ultimi 45 anni. La presentazione sarà in inglese, potete usare la chat quando volete durante il corso della presentazione, alla fine c'è il consueto spazio per domande e risposte. Vi dico che la prossima presentazione sarà tra 15 giorni, quindi il 24 febbraio, e sarà trasporto elettrico a Montreal, Canada. Grazie, ora do la parola a Lars. Lars, you can start if you like.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I have to go back to page 1.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can see full screen. There is a border left and right. I couldn't manage to find the right size here, but you will see everything you need to see. Yeah, 70 years, the VDVA, which is an association of German tram enthusiasts. It was founded in 1956, and this year is our 70th anniversary, and we're going to have a tour this year, and there will be a special celebration, and I thought this would be a good idea to give you a little background into the organization, and this is what we are going to do tonight. Let me see. Yeah, here we go. We were founded in 1956, but strangely enough, the first tour they did before the association was founded was already in 1948. They had to get special permission from the Allied forces in Germany because traveling and also food was still rather restricted. But the man, I'm going to talk about him in a minute, who founded the VDVA organization, did the first tour in 1948 with some enthusiasts, and many of them ended up being members of our society. Last year, we've celebrated another anniversary. We had our 75th annual tour. This is one of the things we do. We have one big tour every year, and counting everything from 1948 onwards, it was the 75th tour. It's usually about a week. Sometimes it's a little longer, sometimes it's a little fewer days. And we also, a couple of years ago, introduced what we call short trips, which are usually a long weekend, 1 to 2 days, plus travel time there and back. And we had 15 of those as well. And our tours can be booked in 3 segments. We meet somewhere, we start, we have a welcome dinner for everybody that is new, who doesn't know the rest of the group, and we can introduce each other to each other. and we have a meal. Then there's the main event, and usually we have what we call an add-on, which is the end of the tour. And these are optional. You can do either the whole program, or you can do just the start on the main, or just the finish at the end of the tour, depending on the time available to our members and non-members. Anyone can join. There is a slight add-on price for non-members, because we'd like to, of course, keep the membership numbers high. As you can see in the next line, we only have 150 members left. When we officially started in 56, being a registered society, till today there were 380 in total, and some have canceled their membership, but the majority of them just died. I mean, it's an age thing. It's a problem that many societies have. I think that the membership is getting old. But we'd like to have more members, of course. We have partner organizations in Germany and some other countries around Europe, and I will show you a list of them. And we already talked about this before the talk started here. We have a very large photographic archive. At the moment, we are over 300,000. Not all of them have been scanned yet. We are in the process of scanning them. We start with the oldest material, and our aim is to have them all available as previews, that you can see what we actually have. This is a map I've thrown together here. This is what we have visited between 1948 and last year. If you look at big countries like Russia here, it does not mean that we have been to all these systems. In Russia, we've only been to St. Petersburg. But as you can see, we've covered most of the systems, tram systems that existed in this time frame. And the only country not mentioned here is a short trip we did to go to the celebrations in Calcutta a few years ago. That didn't fit on the map here. So otherwise, we have stayed in Europe. And of course, originally, we started in Germany. I'm just listing here. This is all in German, but I'm not going to show you the whole list. This is from the bottom up. As you can see, our first tour was in 1948, and we did the Ruhr area. The cities are mentioned there: Duisburg, Wuppertal, and whatever was available around it. And for the first few years, you can see here the second, third, up to the seventh. These are all German destinations, and they're West German destinations, of course. If you look at the history of Germany, the partition after the war, we lost some of our members that were residing in East Germany. And until the wall was built, they were still able to travel, but it was more difficult for them. They had less money, and it was more of a problem for them. But the building of the wall, of course, finished all that activity with our East German members. And our first international trip took place in 1966, so quite a few years later. 10 years later, we did the Baden area of Germany, and we also did a bit of Switzerland, like Basel, and also the Lugano Catrodino. Just a few names mentioned here. There is a list on our website that shows you where we have been. And later, when we look at some of the photos we took that were taken by our members, I'm just going to show very few examples, and I can't show a picture of every trip, and I cannot show a picture of every city or system we visited, because otherwise we would be here for days. There is so much. And here are some more recent ones from the early 2000s here. We usually have a trip in Germany one day, and then the next year we go somewhere abroad. Sometimes we combine it if it's a tram system that is close to the German border, like we did here in 2024. We did Schwerin, Rostock, the two islands with steam railways, and then Szczecin, or in German Stettin is written here, and Landsberg an der Warthe, Gorzów, Wielkopolski were very close, so we did both Germany and a bit of Poland. I talked about our partner societies, and ATTS is one of them. It's not a huge list so far, but these are clubs where we exchange information. And if you're a member of any of these societies listed here, we'd like to increase the list. So if you are have a society or have an organization that wants to share information and participate maybe in our tours, you can get the discount. You get the members rate if you're a member here, and you also get a discount when you order any photos from our very large photographic archive of trams, trolleybuses. We have railways, we have metros, and so on. The VDVA is a member of this German society. It's not a registered society. It's called AHN, Arbeitskreis Historischer Nahverkehr. This is an organization. It's a loose. Well, there's no president. There are no structures. There's no registered club or society. This is a. It's a group of all the tram museums and all the enthusiasts organizations in Germany, mainly those that deal with having either trams or running them as well. And the VDVA, I think, is the only member that doesn't have its own vehicles. But we can, there's an annual meeting. Next one will be in Bremen. Last year we were in Mülheim in the Ruhr area. There are talks about aspects of operating trams, of restoring them, photo archives, websites. There is a kind of a swap meet here where you can offer, or when you're looking, if you have a tram, you want to restore it and you're looking for certain items that are no longer available, you can either make them yourself or you ask around if anybody else can supply them or knows a supplier, maybe even in another country. And we always participate here, and of course it helps us organizing our tours, knowing all the board members here of the members of AHN. This is a very brief overview. Everything is also on our website, of course. As I said, we were founded in 1956, and the man we have to thank is Günther Stetzer from Essen. He was our chairman then. He's the one that attended this 1948, or he organized this 1948 tour. He died in 1974. But Stetzer, Mr. Stetzer, he didn't invent all this, because even in the 1930s there was a kind of a magazine which was then just copied A4 sheets that were sent around. You had to be a member, you had to pay a little money for postage, and this was the so-called Sammlerbrief, and we're going to have a look at one in a minute. Collector's letter. In the 40s, it became more difficult. You had to send in 10 kilograms of waste paper to be able to receive any, because paper was still very much limited. The availability was very much limited in that time. And they were listing ticket types, and there were tramway news, mostly German, of course. And in the 30s, of course, all those members, they were part of the Wehrmacht. They were they were occupiers in other countries, and not much information, of course, was available and wasn't allowed to be published. But still, nevertheless, quite an old origin of what Herr Stetzer became part of it later. And then after 1946, 1947, he thought, I do this on my own. This is a good idea. There is still a club in Berlin today that deals with the ticket collection basis of this, and they also report on Berlin news. So in 1947, Günther Stetzer wanted to organize the first tour in December 47, but it was still very difficult. They couldn't find any accommodation, and it was then moved to the Easter date in 1948 in Duisburg, and 45 people went along, and they had to bring ration cards to be fed in the restaurants, otherwise you wouldn't get any food. And they did a tour of the Ruhr region, which of course in 1948 had many more lines than that survive today. So must have been quite interesting. We'll see one or two pictures later. Here is Günther Stetzer holding the Sonderwagen sign special car. And as you can see, in those days, 1948, everybody was, it was all men. There were no women, of course, no ladies. And they all wore a suit and had a tie and hats and all very, very proper. Don't see that anymore today, luckily, I would say. So on the left, we have the Sammlerbrief here from 1939. This is this copied material that was sent. There are names mentioned here. I think they're all dead now. And as you can see, this was the Nazi time. It has the appropriate greeting at the bottom. I didn't take this out here because this is history. But this is how it started all in 1946. Is the one on the right. It was 25 Pfennig. It's very cheap, but then even then there was a lot of money for people, and they received a couple of pages with information. Here, this is more general information here about what the Sammlerbrief is intending to do, and they're also talking about the origins and how, of course, after the Nazis fell, everything had to be organized in new ways and different, of course. Later, der Sammlerbrief was a proper little magazine which was issued by Günther Stetzer, and he did that on his own. It's not, the VDVA was not really involved in it. He was the president of the club, and all the members had the opportunity to get the Sammlerbrief, but you had to pay him. I don't think that was his main income. I'm not quite sure. We couldn't quite find out what he did. I think he wrote articles for newspapers and magazines. So he was a very well-known transport enthusiast, and he had a lot of knowledge. And later, the Sammlerbrief became the DVA, der Deutsche Verkehrsamateur, the German transport amateur as a name, and more professional, of course. And you could order it and subscribe to it. Our members, he reported about all our meetings, all the tours, and the members sent in photos, like here. Horst Winnig here, he's passed away, unfortunately, member from Brunswick. So these are very interesting. We have them scanned. They are available to our members, and they give quite an interesting insight into those early years after the war. When he died, before he died, Günther Stetzer sold the magazine to somebody else, and then eventually the magazine disappeared. But we have a successor, and I'm throwing this in as a pitch here. Blickpunkt Straßenbahn, it has really no official connection with VDVA. It's our magazine. If we report on VDVA tours, we send in the report and it's printed here. But Blickpunkt Straßenbahn is more or less doing what Günther Stetzer did, and the people before him from the 30s and 40s, reporting on news in Germany. We also include Europe, and Thomas Fischer in Berlin. Many people will know his name. He is our international editor, so there's also reports on the ongoings of trams, trolleybuses, U-Bahn, metro, subway, and S-Bahn suburban trains around the world. And this is a bi-monthly magazine, so there are 6 issues every year, and quite a number of people subscribe to it. You can buy it in station news agents, the bigger ones in Germany. So one of the main magazines in Germany, all in German, of course. The VDVA, having this very large photo archive, published 3 books. And the next book is in production for our big 70th anniversary tour in July and August. So the first book we did is the trams from the 40s. And then we have the one in the middle is the 50s and 60s on the right. And the next one, fittingly for 70 years, for the 70th anniversary of VDA, will be trams of the 70s. And we are going to use our archive here, and we hope to have lots of color views as well. Because in the early days, of course, it's difficult to get color material, but 60s, late 60s, and then, of course, from the 70s onwards, we have more color material. So these books are no longer available from us or from the publishers. We used publishing houses here, 2 different ones. But every now and then they appear on eBay or old books. There are websites for books that are out of print, and they are still available. And if you want the new one, contact me or contact Roberto, and he can give you the contact details here. This will come out by July, I think. Yeah, our big event, 2026, is 70 years. I've discovered AI, as you can see. I've played around with this image here. This is the 12-axle Duvac tram that originally ran on the Rhein-Hartbahn in the Mannheim-Ludwigshafen area, and it's now one of their official events. Trams, one can rent it, and we're going to have a big buffet on it with alcohol, of course, and we're going to go round. That's the plan, to go round the line 5, which is the old OEG, Oberrheinische Eisenbahngesellschaft, which goes from Mannheim to Heidelberg and back, doing a big loop. That should be fun, I'm sure. We hope to have many participants. And this is, before I start with showing you some photos from our archive, this is what we're going to do. So if you're interested, as I said earlier, anybody can participate here. There's a slight add-on charge for non-members. But we're going to do Frankfurt am Main, both the tram and the subway or metro or U-Bahn, as we call it here. There will be a champagne reception, probably with some museum cars in the background. The official museum is still closed. They have a defective roof, but some of the trams, I think they will all have to come out there. And some of the other trams historic trams are where we are going to hold our reception in one of the depots. We're going to go to Mainz, which is close by. And we're also going to do Darmstadt, which has quite a large museum collection. Unfortunately, they don't run anymore. They have been moved to a building away from the tramway. But this museum is not usually open, only once or twice a year for special events. They're not allowed to operate it as a normal museum location. And will we have a charter or private hire? Sonderfahrt, as we call it in German, we don't know. At the moment, there's nothing available. The steam locomotive has been taken apart for maintenance. We don't know if it'll be ready by then. They do have cars that can run, but they are not, they're not ready to run. We might rent one of their older vehicles, which are soon going out of service there. But the biggest event after Frankfurt, where we will see lots of trams and we will swap cars, we will have various trams, we will have depots, of course. But the main event will be the Mannheim, Ludwigshafen, Heidelberg area, which is the last 2 days, where we'll have lots of charters, private hires, changing cars. And there's the dinner tram I talked about. And a lot of lines. We will probably not do them all. Day is not long enough, and our members are getting old. We did a private hire last year in Charleroi in Belgium, and I think it was 6 hours or longer. And by surprise, I think 90% stayed on till the end. I would have thought that many people leave earlier. You can always leave if you are older and you don't want to be, you're sitting down, we are taking care that everybody has a seat on the tram, of course, and as we have members that are mostly between 60 and 80, we need to do that. But if you can leave us any time, you can just tell the driver, and we'll stop at a tram stop, and you can get out and go back to the hotel or whatever and rejoin us later in the day or the next day. So we are very, very flexible here. What I'm going to do now is going to show you a number of photos. As I said, we cannot look at every tour we did. There's just too many. And usually the normal tours, we visit various systems, not just one. But as we don't have all that much time, we don't have 3 or 4 hours here, I've selected a few interesting ones from each trip. And if you want to see where else we went, then on our website, it lists all the other locations we have. And of course, we have the large photographic archive to show. I've just selected a few here. And later on, we will see some photos which Holger Blaue, which I think is a participant today. I've seen the name, kindly sent us from, he purchased or inherited a collection of a member that had died, and it enriched our photographic archive. In 1949 was a special tour. It was not organized by VDVA, but there were a few VDVA members and our leader, Günther Stetzer, of course. This was actually done by the LRTL, now the LRTA. And he participated, and he probably helped organize things and get in contact with the undertakings. Of course, in 1949, this was something quite rare. Nobody had ever seen this before, especially not during the Nazi time, official visits and stuff. That was all not really it didn't happen very often. So here we see Aachen. It's the same car. We have a large collection, but not everything is scanned, as I said. But here you see mostly the LRTL members. And I wonder how many of them are still alive today. In 1953, they did Munich, and they did not only do Munich. I just selected some pictures here from Munich. They did systems nearby, and sometimes they even crossed borders for the day trip or so, but before our foreign trip started. I think the picture on the left is especially of interest. This is it's a set motor car and trailer car owned by the Deutsche Bundespost. Originally by the Reichspost, the imperial post office. It still kept its name under the Nazi regime. But of course, in 1953, it had become the West German Federal Post Office Services, Deutsche Bundespost. And the post office used to have, in some big cities, their own trams operating to shift letters from sorting offices to main offices or to the railway traveling post office. And they had their own cars, and they were maintained by the city system. And Munich, as you can see here, had some. Unfortunately, they were all scrapped. There's a nice model available from Viking, I think, in yellow. That's the Bundespost livery is yellow. And in 1953, they still had them. 1954, they did the area around Hanover. So they went to Celle, which is a small little system north of Hanover, which is long gone. And Hildesheim had already closed its own tram system. There was still the interurban from Hanover, but they had converted their lines to trolleybus. So quite rare photography there. In 1955, Cologne was a destination, And you can see here, this was in the depot. This is a training car. And they inspected it. They probably went around the depot. They might even have had a charter private hire of it. And sometimes, even today, I have to confess, depending on where we go, you're allowed to operate the tram for a little bit under the supervision of the driver. In depots, it's more easy, or on some lines that are away from the city center, because we have people, members in our society that they know how to operate a tram. Some are working in museums, are either conductors or drivers there. In the old days, some of our members used to be managing directors of tram companies. So we don't have any more now. We have retired ones, but now it's really more the enthusiasts. They were there in the old days as well, but they also had some officials. In 1956, I've selected some photos here from the Esslingen-Nellingen-Denkendorf system on the left, near Stuttgart, and on the right, is Stuttgart. And it's always nice to see photos with people on it. I wouldn't be able to identify anyone, of course, but we do have some people did take pictures of the VDVA in action, as we call it. The majority of our photos in the archive, of course, are just trams and nice backgrounds and stuff. But every now and then, you can see these are photo stops. And on the left, I guess it's the exit of a depot, and they are waiting, and then we'll board the tram afterwards. And another visit here, Bremen. There were lectures, of course. There were talks. The directors usually told us about what's going on with these systems, or the depot bosses. And something we even do today, if possible, if we find somebody that can tell us a bit of the history, about the history of the system, or whatever they're going, what's currently happening there, if there are extensions, or if they are restoring cars or buying new trams and stuff. And that's also part of what we still do today. They did it then, and we still do it today. On the right is the tramway of Osnabrück, much further south of Bremen, long closed. Quite rare to see pictures from there. And in 1958, they went to Wuppertal. On purpose, I did not select a picture of the Schwebebahn here, of the famous hanging, the monorail, but I selected a picture on the right of the Rack tramway, which went up to Tölleturm. And as you can see here, the company, the Stadtwerke, the corporation would be an English name for it, the city tramway, made some nice signs that say VDVA Sonderzug on the left, special train or private train, and the same on the Rack tramway on the right with the nice VDVA in the circle there. That doesn't happen anymore, very rarely, I must say. The Saarland, the Saar area was visited in 1959, and I should have checked this when I prepared this. The Saar rejoined Germany. It was under French rule for a while, and they asked the people, and they said, no, we want to be German. And I'm not sure if this was the reason why they went there, but both systems, of course, and all the other systems in the Saarland have long gone. There is a new light rail line in Saarbrücken, the capital of the state of Saarland. But then they had Saarlouis and Saarbrücken. And on the right, you can see that's meter gauge, of course. Every now and then, we've made a big step here. As I said earlier, not all our material is scanned, and unfortunately, we cannot look at pictures of every single trip we did. So we made a jump here to 1966, and we are in the color era now. Freiburg on the left, and that museum car is still there. And in Basel, in Switzerland, They still had 3 different operators there. And the BEB, the Birseckbahn, now part of Basel-Land, the yellow trams. They kept the color. It's a different kind of yellow, but it was still independent then. And that's just across the border, of course, so that wasn't very far from Freiburg for them to go. My hometown of Hamburg in 1967, they came here, and they did, of course, the tramway, which the network was still quite large then. Well, not as big as it used to be, but still they were crossing the river, going south across the river Elbe towards Harburg, and this is what we see on the left here. The bridge, funnily, is still there, but it's closed for traffic now. They built a new bridge to the left of it, which is a motorway, and buses go on it even. But this is only for pedestrians and cyclists now. They did visit the main workshops of the Hochbahn at Hellbruckstraße, and there were still some old train cars left. The DT1 is the more modern-looking one, and on the right is a modernized old car, which they call the TU2, U for Umbau. So they were, well, they got a new body really. All the everything under the body is all original, a bit modernized, but they were still around then. And then they went to Copenhagen, and we got some nice color images here. They could do with a bit of color correction. I didn't have time for that. Trams on the left are in the museum in Skjoldenæsholm today, the big tram museum, probably the best in Europe. I mean, Kreitsch is very nice and very impressive. And I like the Danish one. It doesn't only have trams from Copenhagen or Denmark, it also has various German trams. But here is the double-decker from the Frederiksberg Sporveja, which was an independent company. Later it got merged into the Copenhagen system. And on the right we have one of the Duvacs, which was running on the tourist line, so a sightseeing line. And this and all the other 99 cars, one burned down in Copenhagen. There were 100, and 99 got sold to Alexandria in Egypt. And some of them are still running there, and I plan to be there in about 2 weeks. I'm checking if the interurban is still running, parts of it. But the city system there seems to be on its last leg. I've been there before, but I'd like to see it again. So if you want to see the Alexandria tram system, make sure you don't wait too long before it's gone. Copenhagen, of course, closed, unfortunately. They have a new line now. It doesn't go into Copenhagen. It skirts the western side of Copenhagen, which is not within the city limits of Copenhagen. In the 60s, and maybe even the late 50s, as you see on the left, I said earlier we only had male members, only gentlemen. But then the ladies came along, the wives, and we sometimes organized separate events for them, like having a visit to a museum or sightseeing tour, as not all of them wanted to join their husbands on these very long and intensive charters, private hires we were doing, going around systems. But they probably got a nice cup of coffee in the depot here in Amsterdam on the left. And in The Hague, of course, we have the PCCs, the famous ones, and a few of them are still around in the museum. Vienna, the ex-Third Avenue railway system car, they had quite a number of them. I'm not quite sure, was it 40 or something? And there's only one left in Vienna itself, and it used to run outside the museum there. It's quite wide, so it can't go everywhere. And even when when they were in operation in Vienna, they couldn't go everywhere. But now it hasn't run in quite a few years. There's at least 2 in preservation, but they are not restored. I saw them in Romania many, many years ago. They are owned by the Mariazeller Museum, I think. And on the right is a little training car. So depot visits always feature very heavily in during our tours, because that's where you usually find the interesting stuff. Trams that don't come out, that are stored or retired, works cars. And of course, one can use the toilets, and they often have a canteen, which is always very nice for a short break. 1970, we went to Belgium, and here are some samples from Ostend on the left, the vicinal system, SNCV, NMVB, still around today. Probably this car also survives today in one of the museums in Belgium. They seem to be getting swapped around a lot. So 1 year it's here, and 5 years later it could be in another museum. And Ghent was still all 3-axle in 1970, I think, or mainly. They might have had a few PCCs, but they still had quite a number of these old 3-axle trams, quite small. 1971, again, they did Germany and a bit of Switzerland, in this case Zurich. On the left, this is not a tram, it's not an interurban, it's an electric railway. It's the city of Trossingen. And all the vehicles you see on the left, I think, survive today. They've been mostly painted into green, the older cars, which is probably what they were like when they were new. Unfortunately, the line is still electrified, but they only operate under electric power a couple of times a year, 2, 3, 4 times. Or the rest of the time, there is a little diesel rail car running along it, and it goes beyond the original line. So that's why they can't run electric trains, because they need to go further. It's a rather short line. Zurich, of course, has a nice museum, and lots of 4-wheelers, 2-axle cars survive there. Maybe even this one here. 2-axle trams or 4-wheelers were very much around still in the early 70s, but not for long. Heidelberg here used an old tram as an advertising board, running around advertising. It's for kids, children's paradise. Not quite sure what that is. And on the right, in Ludwigshafen, the same cars also ran in Mannheim, which originally was one system, Mannheim and Ludwigshafen, either working on the truck or maybe getting it ready for scrapping. Not much survived in Mannheim or Ludwigshafen with old cars like this. Yes, we did go to the British Isles, and of course the Isle of Man was visited, and this seems to be at the sea terminal, I guess, where they haven't been for a very, very long time, and now they don't come even close to there anymore. And they also did something on the London Underground. I'm not sure if they visited any depots. I think it's always been rather difficult, London transport, and dangerous, of course, with the third rail. But there was still some nice rolling stock around. Of course, the ones on the left, most of them survive, of course, in the Isle of Man today. They went back to Cologne and also did Düsseldorf in 1977. And you can see here the husband of one of the ladies, of course, took a picture. I think is the one on the left. These are the pictures that came via Holger Blauel. And so they pulled out one of the old horse cars. They might be pushing it back. I can see some legs on the left there behind the tram. Either there's somebody getting out of the way of the photo, or they're pushing it back from the side. I don't know. Düsseldorf still has a few museum trams, maybe even this one here. And of course, Cologne has a big museum, but very few of them ever run, unfortunately. Yeah, 1977, I had hoped there would be more color photography, but it was still expensive in those days. So We have a lot of black and white material still, even that late. Here are some modern trams. They both look like Duvac cars, but of course the one on the right is MAN, is Nuremberg. Probably trying to build something very similar to the Duvac. You see one on the left here, lifted up with minus its bogies, trucks in Würzburg. And some of them on the left still run today, lengthened to 8 axle with a center section added, but they are on their way out too. For a while recently, they were the only trams running because they had problems with the modern ones, structural problems with the body, I think. Nuremberg is still very nice, has a nice big museum, and nearly all the cars can run. And one of these, of course, survives, but it's all modern now. 1979, they went to the Czech Republic. I think Pilsen was also there on the schedule. Here's Prague with the well-known T3s and the Russian-built metro cars, which still survive on I think 2 lines in Prague today, but probably not for much longer. Always very easy to get into depots there. I've been there a couple of times myself, and we never had any problems with the group. In 1988, they did Tallinn, Reval in German, we call this, and Leningrad it was still called Leningrad then, St. Petersburg now. This tour was, I guess, organized by Thomas Fischer in Berlin, who had a travel agency. He was heavily involved with the Blickpunkt Straßenbahn magazine and ran his own travel agency. And sometimes as an add-on to whatever we were doing in 1988, probably Scandinavia, I would say, they had this add-on portion, and it was organized by Thomas Fischer for us, for our members. He's done many tours. He's done nearly all of the Soviet Union, I think all except 2 systems, which he missed because of wars and stuff, and they're gone now. Grozny is one, I think. But Tallinn on the left, they still have some KT4s, and also some of them are modernized, and there's 1 or 2 Gotthard trams from East Germany there in the museum fleet. Leningrad is changed, I think. You don't see these old buses, Marschrutkas anymore. And also this tram type, there might be one in the museum, but that's about it. I have a big museum now. In 1990, we did Sarajevo and Hungary, and I've selected pictures from Szeged here. Sarajevo, of course, an articulated Tatra. Almost none survive now. There were a few modernized ones, but I think even those are not running anymore. They have completely modernized the system, and they're extending the 1 line. They have, well, 1.5 lines. You can call it 2 lines. And Szeged, of course, is still going strong. And they also have this interurban now, which runs on the state railway and the tram network. Not in 1990. There was no sign of that then. I think these are ex-Budapest cars. They went to nearly all the provincial systems in Hungary. And this is what we're going to see in this year for our 70th anniversary tour. And the club went there in 2008. On the left is a preserved RHB car. It was privately owned, and all the museum societies might have to be merged now because the operator doesn't want to deal with 5 different clubs from 4 or 5 different cities. And in 2008 in Darmstadt, you could still rent historic trams. They still exist, but none of them are runners at the moment, unfortunately. But we will go there and we will see what we can find. It should be fun. This is a tour I organized. I think I joined in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. We did Milano, and we called it the Northern Italy tour. So we did most of Northern Italy, also Torino, of course. I did not select any pictures from Torino here because you're probably all too familiar with them. Even though being an ATTS talk here, I could have done, but I thought I show you some pictures which are either you can't do them again or they're difficult to take. You see on the left here is the interurban. This is the Limbiate line, if I'm not mistaken. They ran the special train for us with trailers. We also did the Desio line, where there was still, they still had a lot of cars, and the Limbiate line for many years still had one train a day, so-called school run, where they used the trailers, but you had to get up very early in the morning. But this was nice. We did various photo stops. I think we had a coach traveling parallel. So some people, some of our members, tour members, stayed on the trams, and others rode the coach like me. And this is why we got some more pictures at locations where they couldn't stop, probably slowing down for us. And in Genova, we went into the depot there. It's a bit dark, but I don't think it's quite easy to get in there these days. And I'm not sure if these original cars even still run there. That was very difficult to organize. Genova was a very difficult system. They liked that we were coming, but they didn't really make much effort. But we had a nice time anyways. This one here, 2010, the Wachtelbahn, which the trailers, I think, are all from I think they're from the Wendelsteinbahn. It's a wrecked tramway. This is an industrial line in the very south of Germany, owned by, in those days, by Rohrdorfer cement works. And they still run every now and then, I think. I haven't seen recent photos, really. There might be problems. I think the cement works may be closed down, but they were running until a few years ago still. And on the right, of course, the very nicely preserved equipment here from Innsbruck. Always very nice to go there. Big museum, or, well, not a very big museum, but they have lots of interesting cars available. And in 2011, Mariazell in Linz and other Austrian systems were visited. Mariazell, that's the society on the left, where I talked about these ex-Third Avenue Railway System New York cars that I saw in Romania, under restoration or more or less just in storage. Very little had been done on them, but they have this little museum line in Mariazell, which is for a few years now. It's electric. It used to be steam only, much shorter. And I think the man in charge just died, actually. But they've done a very good job there with restoring. This is a Vienna car, of course. And we had a big group, and as you can see, they fitted in there, but barely. And in Linz, one could still run with nice trams. These are actually ex-Pöstlingberg, which is the line that goes on the mountain, as you can tell by the fleet number here. And they were reconfigured and reworked so they can run on the city system. But I think they don't go there anymore. They only go up the mountain every now and then, but they have modern low-flow cars there doing the main business now. In 2012, we did Berlin, and that was one of the highlights, of course. You can buy tickets for this from the BVG. This is what they call the tunnel tour, a tunnel tour, where you sit on works cars that have benches fitted to them. You have to wear a hat. Not everybody's wearing one there. They probably had not started yet, and the BVG employee would come around and make sure that you wore your hat. in case anything dropped down onto you whilst you went through the tunnels. So a locomotive and these trailers, shuttles around some tunnel sections. This is always very quickly sold out. If we had a special tour, of course, but the regular tours, you have to book them well in advance. On the right-hand side, we have the interurban from Schöneiche to Rüdersdorf. They're currently working on restoring the matching trailer of this. This is one of the trams they built themselves, and it survives as a museum tram. Scenery has changed a bit. I think the road is now sporting asphalt. They have many accidents there, unfortunately, with cars. I'm not quite sure why that is. Back to Austria, 2013, we did the Peyerbach-Hirschwang line, an old interurban line, now museum, of course. I think the trailer might be from Vienna, Baden, if I'm not mistaken. And on the right, we have the Klagenfurt Tram Museum. I think this is a diesel or is it battery? I can't quite remember. They have a small museum with various cars. They have exhibition place nearby and many more cars from all over Austria. But the only thing that runs in Klagenfurt itself is this little line here. There is also an electric line. They are the main museum location. This is another tour I was heavily involved in organizing. We did the Baltic states and Helsinki, and we don't only do trams, we do trolleybuses too. And here we went to Kaunas, and both Kaunas and Vilnius still had one 90R, Skoda 90R. I think this is the one you can almost see it. The windows are all black because it's a party bus. It has an electronic display, and inside you could rent it, charter it, and they were playing loud music, and it was for young people. But for photos, it was okay. Otherwise, sitting in there, it was really gloomy and dark, and not everybody very happy. But we had many photo stops, and for photos, it was okay. The depot, it had rained, as you can see. I got some nice pictures there. Kaunas, I think, is mostly modern now. Vilnius still has some 14TR trolleybuses, but they're going soon. Quite a nice, quite successful visit. We did Riga and Daugavpils and Liepaja, of course, as well. But I can't show you all the photos. Not enough time. East Germany has, there's a typo there. It should say Dresden. I left the D out. Sorry, I didn't see that. 2014, we did a couple of systems around Dresden, and you have these nice Gotha 4-axle trams which are in the museum now. They ran in Berlin, a large number of them. Magdeburg had a few, and Dresden. And on the right-hand side is the Kirnitz-Talbahn, which runs from Bad Schandau to the waterfall. It's very scenic. Some old cars and some second-hand Gotha cars as well. Very scenic. Runs single track, going one way, the wrong way along the main road there, it's a narrow road, but very scenic. In 2015, I think we did Austria and we did Bratislava, and the Schwechat Museum, which is near the Schwechat Airport, has on display one of the Bratislava interurbans, the Pressburger Bahn. Pressburg is the German name for Bratislava. And funnily enough, in Bratislava itself, they also had a electric locomotive that used to run on the original interurban line between Vienna and Bratislava. And this one was later sold to Stern and Hafal, and they had bought it back and repainted it to the original colors. So two different cities here, but really equipment from one system. 2018, back to East Germany, Stassfurt, the tram closed, I think in the 60s. They have one on display. It ran with a trolley pole. I don't think this is original. It looks a bit self-made here, but one of the few systems that ran with trolley poles. And Stassfurt also has this electric industrial line here. I think soda stones or something they do. I didn't go on this tour, but that was quite a nice visit. I understand. I've seen plenty of pictures there. It's still running today. On the right, this industrial. 2018 is one of the first short tours I organized. We went to Sofia and we did everything. We did the tramway. We looked at all the depots. They wouldn't let us in the main workshops, which are long closed and are full of derelict historic trams. They never came around to restore, very rusty, very derelict. We did a couple of the trolleybus depots, not quite so easy to get into depots in Sofia, but we managed most of them. And we had a private hire charter, both on the trolleybus, as you can see on the left, and Icarus. I think they're all gone from service now. And also the two-axle tram on the right. We went around much of the system with that. That was quite nice. We also visited the metro depot, one of the metro depots, which we thought was impossible to do, but they said yes, and we managed it. Very nice. Yeah, this is a bit sad, of course. 2019, we went to Lisbon, and those of you who know Lisbon, they have probably seen the Bica elevador here, or ascensore, that had the accident. It might have even been this car. I'm not quite sure. It's difficult to say because often they were covered in graffiti quite a lot. You couldn't see if it was number 1 or number 2. And of course, one of them was destroyed. None of the funiculars operate now at the moment. They found deficiencies in maintenance and material. Sintra Atlantico was very nice. We had a charter there. I think we might even had 2 different cars changing at the depot. Always very nice there. And we did Porto and the city network in Lisbon, of course. 2019, we also did a short tour of what we call in German, the Buchenland. Birch is Buche is birch. I'm not sure. Birch is Birke. It's a kind of tree, and the area was well known for this type of tree, and it was part of Austro-Hungary, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This is Czernivtsi, or in German Czernowitz, on the left. It used to have a tram, and behind me is actually a museum car, preserved, plinth. Not much left of it, no motors, just the body and the frame. But they have a nice trolleybus system. And we did Lemberg. Lviv is the current name. Lvov was the Polish name. Long time it was Polish. And we chartered or rented many trams there, visited all the depots, trolleybus and tram. And there was, of course, before the Russians invaded the Donbass and Crimea. I don't think there has been any damage in Lviv so far with the trams or trolleybuses. They might not run if there's no electricity, but I don't think the depots were bombed, unlike Kharkiv and recently Kiev. Łódź is a favorite of mine. I got many friends there, and in 2019 we did another short tour, a long weekend, and we rented, chartered nearly everything they have. Both the private cars, the dark green Sanok on the left, behind the one on the front, is owned by an individual of the tram club, a friend of mine, and the company runs the Lil Pop cars. They have 2 of them. One is in the front here in green. And on the right is one of the Duvac trams, which I'm not quite sure where this came from. I have a list somewhere. It could be from Innsbruck or some German system. And I revived the idea of having a nice VDVA logo in the windscreen. And everybody hated it because they said, no, we don't want photos with this bloody sign. So I put it up every now and then, but most of the time it stayed hidden away. It was very cheap, cheaply produced. It didn't incur a lot of expense. I paid for it, but I still have it, and we don't use it much. It says VDVA Sonderfahrt, special ride, private hire. And at the moment, I think they are more or less done with the modernization of this loop on the right, which is Polnocna North Street Loop. And that used to be the terminus of the interurban lines that went north many years ago before they were extended into the city. 2022 Zurich, quite a recent trip. You see the new Limmatal tram on the left. It's a new operator, a new system, which connects with the Zurich system. And a very rare private hire Sonderfahrt took place here from Zurich, from Basel to Weil am Rhein, which is in Germany. And here we see the actual border crossing. The building there, the roof, is where the border patrol and the customs people sit. And in 2022, it was still easy to go through. I think now, every now and then, they come out and they check everybody's passports and see if anybody is smuggling some cheap German pork and stuff into Switzerland, which is much cheaper in Germany than in Switzerland. And you're limited to a certain value, which you can bring yourself. And the main problem, of course, is Weil am Rhein in Germany. That's a new extension. And other regulations apply to this, the German regulations, which are different from the Swiss regulations of running trams, that is, laws, bylaws, and so on. So very few trams of the Basel fleet are actually allowed to cross into this German illegal zone, because you have to have different lights, you have to have blinkers on the side, indicators to indicate when you turn. They don't do that in Switzerland. And none of the museum cars have any of this. But this one, the Dante Shuggi, as they call it, is a famous tram they have, and they use it as a restaurant car. That's why the fork and knife symbol is there on top. They didn't put another one up for the tour, but it went into Germany, quite a rare occurrence. And of course, everybody had to rush out to take a picture, because when we do our private hires charters, you're not allowed to hold up any regular service trams behind you. Can't see one here yet, but you never know. 2023 was a short tour I did. I talked about it earlier briefly. Maybe before we started with the map, I showed you this wasn't on the map. I advertised this tour, and there were unfortunately very few people that had the courage to go. So we teamed up with another operator here, another tour operator. Thomas Fischer from Berlin had retired, so I've been there with him. I think, no, not with him, somebody else. And here, this is a new company, Peters Tours, it's called. And he had a large number of people, and we joined with a small attachment from the VDVA, and that was a splendid program. I had been there in 2011, and most of the lines had gone. When we arrived, there were only 2 lines running, but by the time the big celebrations, 150 years of trams in Calcutta, they had reopened the line on the right going to Shiambazar, and we did various charters, private hires with it. We had to get up very early in the morning, I think breakfast at 6, or we started at 6:30, took a coach to the depot, and then took advantage of no traffic. What you see on the right, this is probably taken at about 8 o'clock, I would say, maybe before 8 o'clock. And you see there's one taxi, and then there's a bus approaching from the back, and there's a car parked on the left. But 2 hours later, or maybe an hour later, you wouldn't be able to take a photo like this. There would be 50 or 100 cars and 5,000 people walking. Early morning, they are selling coconuts. This is not to sell to people, but it's to sell to shops and shopkeepers and little stall holders that chop them up, put a straw in, then you have a refreshing drink. So this is wholesale, and the wholesale market, I think it stops at about 8 or 8:30. So you have to be early there. But this line still runs today, which is nice. And it was the first time for me to see these modern trams, which are just a portion of the articulated older trams. They cut off one half of it and extended it a bit. Outlook in Kolkata, of course, not looking very good. The police doesn't like them. They hold up the traffic apparently, and the city government doesn't like them. So it might all close down except for a very short line from Esplanade to the Victoria Memorial. And they probably only need 1 or 2 cars. They have actually converted one of these cars to double-ended, but with doors only on one side. So they just put another cab at the other end. 2023, we went to Norway, which was very nice. We went to the famous Gråkalbanen in Trondheim on the left, and we, of course, had to do the picture on the bridge. It has been modernized, so it's not as scenic as it used to be. And side views are very difficult, but we all managed to squeeze into the very tight space that was available here for a quick photo. And then you had to let other people go to the front to take pictures. And the museum director there, Rune, of course, he did everything for us, lots of photo stops. And I had actually arrived 2 days earlier. And Jack May and Karl-Heinz Röber, and Karl-Heinz is a participant today in our tour. We did a pre-tour 2 days before using different cars, which was quite nice. Oslo has a nice tram museum. It's full of trams. It's almost difficult to photograph, and they got so many that they have 2 other locations where they have reserve stock, where they are working on it. And this is their main facility. It's not the main museum, so this is not open to the public. And we only had time to go to this one place, and it's full of trams and these interurban types that what is now the metro, that used to be private railway lines that got converted, and now a bit boring, the metro, one type of rolling stock. But a lot of old cars have been preserved. In 2024 is a tour we did to Rostock and Schwerin, and we did the 2 steam railways nearby with depot visit. And just across the border, not too far, was Szczecin, Stettin, and Landsberg, Gorzów. And in Gorzów, we rented a few trams, and this system has been thoroughly modernized. And the last of the old ex-Kassel 6-axle cars are going to be replaced soon. So if you want to see them running, you better hurry. Better do it this year, I think. I hope you can't hear my cat. It's outside the door to this room here, and it's meowing a lot. It wants to be let in, but we'll let it meow out there. 2025, as I said, we did the Belgian tour and Charleroi and the museum at Tours. So the picture here is not in Charleroi. It's a tram that operated in Charleroi, but it's the Tours-Lob line, which is very nice. And on the right is another recent victim of closure. It's the Grot line to the grots of Han-sur-Lesse. This is the last vicinal line. It was owned by TEC, or SWRT, which is the Walloon successor to the vicinal state railway company, the SNCV. And organizing this tour was extremely difficult. They didn't want to reply. They didn't seem to care at all that we were coming. But in the end, last minute, we managed to arrange something, and we had found out that by then they only ran a couple of trips a day and not even going all the way to the loop at the church where the ticket shop is for the grots, the grotten. And for us, they ran a train, and we went the whole line, fortunately, and back. And it recently was closed. TEC, who owns it, let all the employees go, and the operator of the area, which it's a zoo, and it's these grots, which are quite interesting, didn't seem to be interested in taking it over. It would have been quite expensive for them insurance-wise, and so they just stopped running these trams, and we don't know what's going to happen to them. But we were lucky; they were still running. Only 2 cars we saw, 2 motor cars, and the trailers were taken out of the shed for us. So it was nice to see that and ride them. And in 2025, we also did Liège, Lüttich in German, brand new tram, well, brand new, but fairly new tram system. And we also went to Luxembourg and saw the modern trams there. And they have a little tram museum in the bus garage, in the bus depot. And unfortunately, they have to be, they want to sell the area, that the bus garage will move somewhere else, and nobody knows what's going to happen to the trams. They cannot run very far. There's maybe 50 or 60 meters of track. So there's a little bit behind me, the photographer here. The line to the left was never used. It actually goes into the workshops of the bus depot, but it was never, I don't think it ever had a tram running on it all the way. You can go up there a bit. They have museum buses as well. And they were running around with these 2 cars for us, up and down for a little while, which was quite nice. So let's have a look at the time. It's 10:30 locally here. My program is really finished, and I want to ask you if you want to see some more photos or not. I have a few more I can show you. These were all taken in 2018 as another short tour we did. We went to Belgrade, and should I continue with some more photos, or have you had enough? Let me know.
No, please go on. It's very interesting.
Of course, you can always retire if you have enough and it was a long day for you. You just stop. But okay, I will continue. So our normal tours, which are, as I said earlier, 5 to 7 days. Usually, we sometimes have about maybe 50 people. We've had 60 or 70 in rare cases. And these short tours, they vary a lot. I think in Calcutta we were 4 or 5, but we went with the other group, of course. So there were maybe 30 people altogether, 25, 30. Roger was there. He will remember that. Here in Belgrade, we were, I don't know how many other, 15 maybe. So this is a bit smaller group, but larger than sometimes. And not all people are members. We also have some visitors here, some non-members that came on the tour. And we usually take one picture, a group photo at every tour, but I didn't want to show you just pictures of group photos. So I selected a number of pictures I took in Belgrade. What I do very often is, before we go somewhere with a group, when I organize the tour and I run the tour, I go there on my own or with one or two friends, maybe a year before or 2 years before, depending on what is available and how much time I have. And I had been to Belgrade before, so I knew what was there for us to see. And there was, I think, 2 or 3 years before I went, and already when we arrived for this tour, we noticed that things had changed. There was a new security regime. They had hired lots of security people that were running around, making sure nobody entered the premises. And there were certain areas of the depot which were off limits to us. And only 2 or 3 years before, I had been able to go everywhere and take pictures of everything. So these things change. Not everything stays the same. And if you go there again in 5 or 10 years, maybe they wouldn't even let you back in the depot again. I don't know. We can never rely on on something you have experienced before. So you have to enjoy it whilst it lasts. So here's a little shunter and snowplow. Kindly, they pulled them all out of the derelict main depot hall, which has a leaking and dangerous roof. And when I was there first, we took the pictures inside there. We didn't have to wear a helmet, but they said, be careful here. If something falls down, run. But for our tour here, everything was pulled out and put into the sun. There's a bit of a shadow on the side. Not always can you get the right angle. This is a replica horse tram. I don't think there's anything original of it. It's quite hideous, but it's nice. They made some kind of effort. I didn't see that before, so they must have made it there. Next to the trolleybus depot is an electricity. I don't know if it's a substation or something. It's something to do with the electricity company, and their yard is used for storage here. There's only one trolleybus in there. I think the other one behind is a bus. And as you can see, this doesn't look very nice. It's a ZO9, very rusty, and nobody could tell us if it was going to be preserved or scrapped. Or I managed to quickly walk in there, take a picture, and then quickly walk out again. They have a museum tram, and I think did we rent it? I think we rented it. And also the Basel tram on the right, we rented that one. We'll see more pictures of that. This is in the depot here. This is the depot building, which is in good shape. And this is the inside. There are 2 trams that for quite a number of years had been on display at some kind of a movie studio. They were sitting outside and they probably did some movies. So they restored these trams. They can't run, of course. There's no pantographs on them, but they were externally restored, and luckily now they're living inside the depot undercover here. So maybe one day they can restore them. Here's the other one, different type. Could be. I'm not sure if it's a trailer or a motor. This is the new depot on the new Belgrade side, full of Basel trams, which had already been retired. I think there's not many left now at all of them running. Large numbers of stored vehicles. We did rent this tram, and we went on this nice line that used to go all the way to the southwest. It's long closed. They had problems with it, and they closed it down. They want to bring it back, but I think it must have been closed for 10 years at least. 28, no, not quite 20. We went in 2018, so it was still running then, but not much longer. And this tram never ran in regular service, but we were able to rent it for our group. I've got a couple of pictures of it. This is on the line. There's a photo stop, and there's also the regular tram approaching from behind. So we had to hurry to get back on board. On the left train area, and there's one of Tito's or the Tito saloon or salon train is stored in there. I think we didn't have time to go there. And this is on the way back from that long line. Nice bridge view. Yeah, problems. They wrecked the pantograph. It collapsed. Luckily, it didn't produce any damage to the overhead wires. But of course, we were marooned. We were still actually on this line where we just been with a bridge view. And the regular tram pushed us then forward. There will be another picture, I think, with some people attending it in a minute. That was the end of that charter, unfortunately, and of that private hire Sonderfahrt. So we did about half of what we had envisaged, and then the car broke down. Ah, here they are. They've pushed it into the nearest loop, and I know I think they managed to repair it, and we had it for a little bit longer, but we went straight back to the depot, I think, 2018, so long ago. And there you can see the not so nice part of the depot with a nice bus, Leyland, I think it is. Most of the roof is gone. Sometimes there's still a bit of roof left and in dangerous condition, but that was completely off limits to us, of course, and there wasn't much in there, anyways. Now we rented one of the green Basel city trams. This is their party car with a matching trailer with no. We can't look out. The windows have all been covered with shrink wrap. But the front car was nice. And this is on the nice descent here down to the river. Picture taken inside the workshops, one of the Basel city trailers. Don't think they run anymore. This is on the river. Some nice background view there with a famous bridge. They have some, as in America you would say, shrink wrap all over advertising, or Popwerbung, Ganzreklame, as we say in German. Still from Basel. This is not a Serbian or Belgrade thing. I mean, it's in English, but it was there in Basel, and they had some other cars as well. Some of the city, Basel city, the green trams were later, they went to the Basel Land, the interurban operator. Remember earlier we saw a picture of the BEB, the Birseckbahn, and Basel Land still runs that line today. And they also sent some of their trams to Belgrade, the city, and also the interurban operator. And this is the party car, the trailer. I think it had a beer thing in there. I don't think we traveled in it. I mean, you couldn't see anything. There were one or two seats. I think it was for beverages, I think. But we rented the whole train, of course, the whole car, whole set. This is an evening view. You see the light is gone. We had a couple of charters. When we have a large group and it's cheap to rent cars, then we rent as many as we can. But unfortunately, most systems in the world, the prices have gone up quite steep. This one is no longer in service there, sitting as a kind of a waiting area for staff when it rains or whatever. These were still running when we were there. They have low floor, and they have started to apply advertising shrink wrap on those as well. Our Sonderfahrt, our private hire charter car is behind. We'll see more photos of it. We did not only do the trolleybus depot, we also had a trolleybus charter, private hire, and also we had time to do our own photography. So before we met in the morning, or once we finished with our tours or had a lunch break, we always in our group have time. You can always do your own thing. You're not obliged to attend all the program that we offer. You can do what you like. Yeah, many trolleybuses in very bad shape already then. More problems now, and the future, I think, is quite unsecure for trolleybus system. They look okay from a distance, but inside they're heavily worn and there's a lot of rust on them. You can't see that when you put shrink wrap all over advertising over them. Or maybe the body is held together with it. I like shrink wrap advertising. Many of my friends hate it. I love it. Yeah, we spent some time in the depot. These are adjacent. The trolleybus depot is right next door to the tram depot. It's, well, they're technically separate, but as you can see, there's no fence in between. You just walk from one portion to the next. There's a tour member here. Funnily enough, this location, when I went there a couple of years before, 2 or 3 years before, there was a dewirement. We had one of these articulated Zeos, and it dewired, and the trolley pole, one of them got really wedged in, so they couldn't move forward or backwards. I think it took about half an hour to do some jiggling there to release it. And this is why I took another photo there. I don't show you the photo of this incident because it wasn't part of the tour. Battery buses, of course, on the way in, they've installed equipment in one of the depots. I think when we were there, they only had these 2 Chinese Hija, or whatever you pronounce, however you pronounce it, and they were running one line from Novi Beograd, New Belgrade, across the bridge to some place downtown, I think. So as it was new, I took a picture. Probably today there are many more. So some of the older trolley buses were still around, but not in use anymore. Trams, the Basel ones, very nice. Nice livery. I like both the green and the yellow ones. These pictures are a bit mixed because they are sorted by fleet number. Old Zeo here, probably a training car. You see the triangle there in the back window. Probably had an L in it or something for learner car. Yeah, there were very few articulated trolleybuses still in service. The Zeo 9s, well, the company had been renamed Trolsa by the time they were delivered. Of course, this company from Engels in Russia is long closed. And very few of them were actually still in service when we were there. There were more of them in service when I was there 2-3 years previous. And this is the one we had rented, we had chartered. Most people came out to take a picture, of course. This was one we did later in the day, so not the whole group attended. We always have some members that prefer trams to trolleybuses or the other way around. So we try to do them all, but you can attend that part of the trip or the program you like and avoid the others. This is, I think, the line from the depot into town. One of the termini. This is what the Trolsa front is. The rest of the bus is like an old Zeo. It's only the front got modernized. I mean, they put new fronts. They changed the production and got rid of the old types and put a bit of modern stuff on the front when it became Trolsa. Yeah, that was one of the areas we were not allowed to go. There were some more stored trams and broken down trolleybuses and a lot of rubbish and rubble there. But with the telephoto lens and the security people not looking my way, of course, we always try to sneak in some forbidden photos here. And this, I think, I like quite nice with the overhead wires and different types. As you Trollsas and these new, they are Belarusian BKM trolleybuses. My cat here is getting quite angry. It's scraping at the door. It wants to be let in. Some shrink wrap advertising on the KT4s. They have quite a number of these in very bad shape. Yeah, it's difficult to see on the side where the company logo is and the fleet number. You can see there's lots of patchwork and there's a lot of graffiti also on these, and they try to paint them over. And inside and outside, they look quite worn, unfortunately. I mean, they did in 2018. I'm not sure how many still run today. The destination signs, the films, the roll signs didn't work anymore, so they printed some paper signs and stuck them in the front window. But they were still maintaining them and needed them for more low floor trams have arrived since, replacing these. There's the one works car. It's a KT4 that was converted as a cargo tram. I'm not sure if they really use it for cargo. They might use it to transport stuff from this old depot to the new one on the other side. Maybe that's what they mean with cargo. It was hidden away when we arrived, and I saw it, and it took some persuasion for them to actually drive it out for us. But we managed. When I took this photo, I should have zoomed out a little more. You would have been able to see the nice big church in the background more. Too late now. Yeah, this is another forbidden photo here. We actually walked past these and were under strict instructions not to take any photos. But then the security people walked in front of us, and I quickly turned back and took a picture. Here you can see the state of the trams, the paint scheme, especially on the front, and the front portion of it, quite bad. The rest looks okay. But some of them are in better shape than others. They're not like the Swiss trams that went to Vinica in Ukraine, which still look pristine today. But some of them were in fairly good shape here. But again, paper stickers instead of roll signs or blinds. Yeah, this is the charter tram, our private hire, Sonderfahrt. It's one of the yellow trams. I mean, not this type of yellow, but this is actually the BEB, the picture I showed you at the beginning of our photo session in Basel, the BEB, Birseckbahn. And while still running in Basel for Basel-Land, the interurban operator, they had kind of centenary or something, and they repainted it into this nice original livery. I mean, this type of car never had this, of course, but the old trams used to look like this, the old four-wheelers, two-axle trams. And they kept this in Belgrade. They didn't change the color, saved them some money. So we rented it, of course, and we went to all sorts of places on it. Nice quick photo stop on the bridge. Sometimes we ask the driver to remain in the front seat. More difficult when you don't speak the language, and sometimes we also close the doors. Doesn't happen all the time, unfortunately. That was a very nice ride. I think this bridge is closed currently and for rebuilding. And I've heard that they might not put tram tracks back on it. They've since built a new bridge. It wasn't in service when we were there in 2018. I think it's to the right of this. But usually there's a lot of traffic here. I think this was a weekend. During the week, you cannot take photos, or you couldn't take photos then when the bridge was still in operation in 2018 during a normal day, because there was car after car. And this is, I think I probably did this after our program had finished, and I walked there one day and saw that there were opportunities to take photos. Yeah, that's why I like depots. You find interesting vehicles in there. No idea what this one does. It's road rail. Can either clean the track. This is on the line going south. So one of these suburban trains, kind of an S-Bahn service, in quite good shape. No graffiti on it. Most of the other trains are completely covered. This is heading towards where the Tito train lives, the depot. Yeah, this is the picture I said earlier. We had the crew arriving, working a bit on it. And if I remember correctly, we had it for a bit longer, but they were not sure that it might not break again, the pantograph. So we cut the ride short. Yeah, we had a quick stop here. It's one disused loop. I think it's on the along interurban line. Oh, well, the southwestern line, I think. Yeah, something we see in the depot. I take pictures of everything. And I think this is the last photo for this program. It's a track bending machine, and it's powered. It has a trolley pole, and it can, when it works, they somehow connect it to the wire, or maybe the wire is gone there, might not be in use anymore. Maybe they've forgotten that piece of track there. But quite a nice thing, a nice works car. Looks like a tram with actually a bit of equipment, but it's on wheels and they can push it around. I don't think it can drive. So thank you very much for staying so long. I'm going to stop the sharing now.